coming here today to listen to me. My name is Smiti. I'm one of the co-founders of Advantage Club, which is one of the world's largest employee engagement, rewards, recognition, and culture building platforms. So today I'm going to talk about winds of culture, winds of change, shaping culture with technology. So before we jump on to discussing how to change culture, let's first talk about what exactly is culture. According to me, culture is equivalent to recruiting to what product is to marketing. When you have employees interview you or you have candidates come in to be interested to join your company, the first thing they look for beyond salary is your company culture. So culture is your branding for your upcoming employees, for your existing employees to retain them, and for your customers to feel that, okay, they're in safe hands. They're in the hands of a company with a good culture. Now, what are the various drivers of culture? To drive culture, primarily, there are more or less 6 options where I feel that these pointers really drive culture. The first is your business practices. What exactly is the functioning of your business? How do you run your business on a day-to-day basis really defines how your culture is being built. The processes around how things are done within the company. The peer interactions within employees themselves also builds culture in a direct and indirect manner. The perception of the company. What do people feel about the company? If you were to take the pulse of the organization, would it be a positive pulse or would it be a negative pulse? That really helps in building a good culture or a bad culture. Leadership is the core of culture building. Everyone follows the leaders. So whatever the leaders do becomes like a basic baseline for everyone to behave in the organization. And lastly, your core values, the organizational values which you drive, also are one of the major drivers of culture in any company. So what is the benefit of driving a good culture? First and foremost, you get great compliance. Everyone knows how to do things, what to do, and in what order to do. Second, you're able to build optimism in the organization. You're able to create a sense of happy employees, people being excited to come to work every morning, and they feel that they're comfortable working in a great organization. Trust is yet another benefit of building a good culture. When you are working with a company with a good culture, you feel that, okay, the company cares about me. And hence, you automatically start trusting the company more, and you feel more secure and safe in that particular organization. It also builds conviction that I can stay here for a longer term. I'm not looking for jobs all the time because I feel that the company has a good culture, and I'm not sure if my next company will have that kind of good culture or not. And lastly, a good culture brings out the best creativity, the best out of all employees within the company. A good culture also makes employees bring the best out of the company itself and make the company a better version of what it was before. So primarily, how do we change culture? Harvard Business Review says that you cannot just change culture overnight. You can't just pull out a mandate and say that, hey, till yesterday, our culture was X, and from tomorrow, our culture is Y, and it'll magically just happen. It does not happen via any mandate or any rule which you create. It's a constant movement which ensures that if everyone in the organization is collaboratively working towards changing the culture, that entire movement makes it happen over time. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes resilience. So how can we utilize technology to make a better culture in the organization? So here I'm going to talk about 4 aspects of company culture where digitization can actually be implemented in the right manner. The first one being employee wellness, second being recognition, third being engagement, and fourth being social interactions. So let's first talk about employee wellness. If you had to drive wellness in a digital fashion, what would you have to do? The first thing you need to do is you need to preempt your employee needs. The first thing which comes under preemption is to create a culture of caring for the employees. Creating a culture and branding a culture are 2 different things altogether. You could have a great culture, but if you don't brand it right, the, the sense of informing employees that you're really doing a lot of things for them go away. Like I remember, I used to work for Microsoft in the US, and Microsoft had this concept called Microsoft Cares. And they had this branding on every wellness initiative, every employee initiative they did. Now, naturally, every time I am taking part in any engagement activity, I see that branding, Microsoft Cares. So automatically, it gets instilled in my brain as a psychological factor that Microsoft cares about their employees. If the same initiative is done by any other company, but they're not branding it right, the employees don't end up thinking in that direction directly. So creating a culture of care becomes really important to preempt wellness in the company. Once you've created the culture, it's also important to execute it with creating right work-life balance. So if you're in a hybrid setup, how flexible are you in terms of work from anywhere, in terms of timings, in terms of accessibility? That also helps build better wellness. The third thing for preempting wellness is assessment of your employee needs. What do you need if you're building wellness? What do your employees need, really? Do they need physical wellness? Do they need mental wellness? Do they need financial wellness? Or do they need a combination of all of that? So really breaking down your employee needs in a very simple format helps in preempting your employee wellness needs itself. Once you've identified what your employees need, you need to detect it further by getting the exact requirements from your employees. So there are a lot of survey tools available which you can use to identify your employee needs and develop your wellness using technology. You can also have a lot of peer and employee interactions. You can have manager-employee interactions to drive better awareness and better understanding of what your employees are requiring today. And lastly, self-reporting works as well. Now you've identified what your employees need. How do you execute them using technology? In terms of execution, the easiest way to implement technology is to outsource it. I mean, building it in-house is possible, but it's hard, it's time-consuming. It takes years, if not months, to actually build technology in-house. Maintaining it becomes hard, so tech ends to become clunky over time if it's created in-house. It also eventually becomes outdated because you're not necessarily keeping up to date with the trends in wellness industry. So outsourcing it makes the most sense to make it more digitized and more updated in general. You can also use platforms like Advantage Club where you can actually utilize apps. So don't just use a web-based platform. Use something which employees can hold in their hands, which employees can walk around and use it whenever they want to, because everyone's on mobile phones nowadays. You can also integrate more flexible options when you are building digital wellness. So instead of giving them, say, a single standard health package, give them options to pick and choose what benefit they want. So everyone's needs are different. No two employees think the same. So if you are, say, for example, having an employee who's diabetic, that person might need a diabetes assessment test. If you have an employee who's a smoker, that person might need a smoking cessation test. So one size does not fit all here, and hence creating a flex basket of services from where employees can pick and choose really helps utilize technology in the right manner to create a flexible benefit module for them. And of course, if you've built it, you need to identify the ROI, map it clearly, and ensure that all of the efforts which you're actually putting in are flowering out, or are they not? Because you could keep running initiatives, but then if nobody is using those benefits, then it just is a waste of everyone's effort and energy, and most importantly, time. Next, I come to recognition. How can you digitize recognition to build a better culture? So again, for recognition as well, there are a lot of tools available, like ours as well, in the market, where you can utilize the technology to drive better digital recognition. So the first thing you need to do to digitize recognition is to understand what is exactly the pulse of your company. Are you hybrid? Are you completely work from office? Are you work from home? Are you work from anywhere? Are you global? Do you need language customizations? What do you need? Identify that in a clear manner, and then use a technology partner who can help digitize the entire thing in a technology fashion. You should replace all your physical gifts, physical trophies, everything with digital gifts, maybe vouchers, reward points, anything like that. Convert all your physical trophies with digital badges. Convert all your physical certificates to digital certificates, which go automatically in employee emails. They're printable, they're easy to use. I can still print it and put it on my desk. Also, automate rewarding as much as possible. There are certain things which don't require human intervention. Like, for example, have your tools integrate with your CRM. Imagine how cool it would be if I complete my targets and immediately I get rewarded. You know, I don't have to wait for anyone to calculate it. It just comes automatically right then and there. Similarly, for things like birthdays and anniversaries, how nice would it be if instead of doing a monthly birthday thingy, my company wishes me on the day of my birthday, my points get loaded automatically, and I get, say, a greeting card. So everything can be digitized, and these are automations where you don't need to be dependent on somebody to actually upload in Excel and then actually award people. The third is engagement. Now, engagement is such a vast concept. I'm not going to deep dive into what are the parts of engagement. Rather, I'm going to talk about how do you digitize engagement in the right manner. So the first thing which you need to identify while digitizing engagement is to create good, authentic content which people can actually relate with. There is no point sending long content-based emails which nobody's going to read in the company. They might not even understand what exactly are you trying to tell your employees, what exactly are you trying to convey to them. So all your communication needs to be more image-based, more, say, training could be more video-based rather than being more document-based. So everything needs to be more creative, more visually appealing to the employee. Even if you're doing it for your employees, think of it in the same manner as to how much effort would you put if you were doing this for your customer. You should put the similar amount of effort in creating that kind of engagement module for your employees as well. It's also important to keep it updated and keep it fresh. It doesn't make sense to do the same thank you week over and over again. People are going to get bored out of it. And then you will see engagement levels drive down. So it is important to keep doing different engagement activities which are paced differently, paced in the right kind of timings, and they're differentiated in the right manner so that it just keeps it fresh all the time. And employees are always looking forward to, oh, you know what's going to happen this month. Similarly, you should also take reverse feedback on every campaign which you run. So while, of course, we're very good at giving employees feedback, it is also important to take a reverse feedback in which we understand that, okay, we ran this campaign. How did you feel about it? Do you think this was helpful? What do you think we could have done better? So that in the future, when we run these engagement campaigns again, we can be more mindful of that and we can create a better structure in the future. It's also important to be interactive, and I will talk more about social interactions in my next slide. But overall, just to sum up interactiveness, it needs to be a two-way flow, where employees also can do something. They're not just reading stuff, they're also contributing, and they're able to get involved in that entire process. Lastly, it's also supposed to be very analytical. So you need to focus on results while you're driving any campaigns. While we're driving campaigns, we sometimes tend to get stuck in the process that, okay, we spent so much of time in running this activity, who cares about the results? But result analysis is really important so that you don't spend that kind of time and effort in the future again. Next is our social, and this is like my favorite part of culture building, where how can we integrate technology to make social interactions better? So there are a lot of digital solutions, again, where you can utilize them and enable employees to connect at work and also outside work. Peer feedback also becomes a really great way of driving social interactions digitally. What I like about peer feedback is it's very different from manager feedback. You're very scared when your manager gives you feedback, but when your peer gives you feedback, you take it very positively. It also helps you get better manager feedback, better appraisals in the future. So peer feedback needs to be really a part of your culture so that people can become better versions of themselves. Peer appreciation also becomes really important where, if you think about it, we're all, as humans, very hungry for appreciation. If somebody comes and tells us, hey, you did a good job, we naturally feel more elated and we feel that, okay, next time I'm going to do a better job. If somebody comes and tells me, thank you for helping me, the next time that person comes to me for help, I will be more willing to help them. Because naturally, psychologically, we're always hungry for appreciation. Peer appreciation really helps build a great culture, and digitization can help you in terms of driving that culture as well. So in appreciation, you can drive different forms of appreciation beyond your standard thank you card. You can have themes, you can have different concepts based on festivals, based on different formats of events or activities happening in the company. Make peer appreciation a very regular thing in your company. It's also important to create groups connecting like-minded employees. Like at Advantage Club, we have a concept called as hobby clubs, where you could actually create these groups of people, like photography clubs, running clubs, hiking clubs. Now think about it, after pandemic, most of us, while we're working hybrid, half of us have not even seen each other. It's very different from, how it was pre-COVID, when you'd walk in an office, you'd be talking to so many people. But here, you haven't even seen their faces. So how do you really connect with them? So creating these like-minded groups really helps people connect with each other, interact with each other. Now imagine that my leader loves hiking and I love hiking, so I can connect with them, which I wouldn't be able to do in a digital format myself. You can also use social groups to create very, social reformation groups, like for example, pride clubs or network of women. You can also enable, mentor-mentee clubs where, say, the managers can connect with their team members on a very regular basis. Lastly, in terms of event celebrations, this is something which used to completely happen physically, non-digitally pre-pandemic. Technology can help you digitize that as well. You can utilize technology to celebrate different forms of event, create group greeting cards, enable people to collaborate with each other in a more respectful, at the same time, collaborative fashion. So this is a really interesting study I found with Gallup, and I really like this, so I use this in a lot of my slides. So pre-pandemic, if you look at it, 60% of the employees across the world were fully on site. Post-pandemic, now that number today is at around 53%. And if you look at the preferences of employees, almost 60% of employees want to be hybrid, which means that this 60% of people who were working from office are now going to be completely hybrid. So your entire shift of population is happening in which nobody's going to be on site anymore. So it is really, really important to deploy technology and ensure that it becomes an enabler for hybrid future of work, because this is going to be our future. Lastly, in terms of other aspects driving culture beyond technology, I feel that senior leadership needs to be very involved because everybody follows them. Physical infrastructure also needs to be good. When I talk about infrastructure, I don't mean having a fancy office. What I'm trying to say is, if you're working hybrid or if your employees are remote, do they even have internet? Do they even have laptops or tables or chairs? Do they have accessibility to come to work every day? How do you define physical infrastructure for, say, the physically disabled if they're coming to office? So physical infrastructure plays a great part in building your culture as well. Also, another thing which defines our culture is the purpose and strategy of the organization. All your initiatives need to be actually linked to the core values and the purpose of the organization. It doesn't make sense to drive things which are not really related to your company just because everybody else is doing it. And lastly, you need to engage, reward, and celebrate with employees, which really helps drive a good culture. And that's what we do at Advantage Club here. We help organizations engage, reward, and celebrate, and make them more future ready. As a parting note, just as a last slide, I would just like to mention that digitization can be done across the entire employee life cycle, not just culture building, right from hiring to exit. But digitization is not a reinforcer, it's an enabler. So you can use technology to enable things, but to reinforce, you have to promote it, you have to reward it, and you have to recognize it, and actually have that in your company culture by design so that you're able to build a more better digital culture. That was my time, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to me. We have a booth here, so if you need to chat, please do drop over at Advantage Club. Thank you.